Today's theme is it's more than just a game. And I think for a lot of us, gaming has been something which feels strangely important. It's not that we think that the games are themselves important, because they really aren't. You could never play a game again in your life, and the world wouldn't suffer for it. There's a lot of things that seem more important than playing games, like managing a business or producing something that you can sell for profit. But I saw a comic where it showed this kid climbing up a hill, and the hill said school, and then he got to the top and there was another hill, and that hill said high school, so he kept on climbing, and then he got to the top of that and it was another hill, and that hill said college, so he kept climbing. And then in the final panel, he got to the top of that one, and that's when he realized he was just at the base of a hill called life. So he had to keep on climbing. And right in there is this notion of, at what point is enough achieved? And if you are always trying to do things which are of great importance, and you're always trying to be important, you're always just finding yourself at the base of another hill to climb, and you never really reach the summit. There's never really any achievement of some great spiritual triumph. There's just another level grind. And with gaming, I think it's an opportunity for us to meditate, in a way, on things which are more than just a game. To meditate on those philosophical questions of who we are. It's been said that birds would not have an instinct to migrate south if there was no south for them to go to. The point being that when we have this sense of longing to return to our favorite fantasy world, that desire to get lost again in Skyrim, that desire to get excited every time we hear about some new release that's going to come out and introduce us to another grand adventure, that tendency to tune in to a developer update and be excited about a new region being released. We have this desire for adventure and for exploration, and we think we're just exploring virtual worlds on a computer screen, but maybe what we're really trying to explore is something spiritual inside of us. Whether you're going to church on Sunday or playing your favorite computer game, maybe all we're really doing is finding a physical way to interact with something that is spiritual. Because we can't really understand truth in its purest form, because we are interpretive creatures. We speak and learn through allegories quite often. So maybe we can't fully understand the journey of life, what it means, where we're going, those questions of mortality, of purpose, of fulfillment. And that's why it's so therapeutic to just immerse yourself in some fictional universe and go on an adventure of exploration. Or maybe in real life, just to go outside your door and go for a walk, or hit the road and go on a road trip to a place you haven't been or haven't been for a while. The point I'm getting at is that for each of us, it's a different experience, and yet quite often it feels like something that's more important than just being a game we play for no other reason than to pass the time. And I think that's why it feels so cutting when people act like gaming is a stupid hobby or that it has no purpose. I think for me, it's been an amazing escape. And there's been so many times in my life where I've been busy thinking about what is the best MMO to play and what's going on with the lore in that game world. Watching some random YouTube video about the dietary practices of wood elves or something. And you know, while I've been thinking about all of those things, I've been more able to make peace with all of the more real things going on in life. Sometimes we're keyed up. We're naturally anxious. We struggle to just find peace and be calm. And I think maybe that's something that gaming helps us with. It gives us something peaceful, something somewhat passive to consume some of those busy thoughts so that we can have a sense of peace, a sense of satisfaction, and a sense of being okay, regardless of what external factors may be going on in our lives or in the world. The games that I find myself enjoying the most are not necessarily the newest ones, not necessarily the ones with the best graphics. They're always the ones that open up an expansive world to traverse, to explore. They're the games that give me the opportunity to just be present in the moment without necessarily worrying too much about the end game or any concrete objectives. It's gathering resources and selling them in Elder Scrolls Online. It's casually, slowly grinding up my character in Lord of the Rings Online. It's logging in once in a while to fight creatures and maybe do a quest or two in Genshin Impact. And these are worlds that over the years I've come to appreciate a great deal because they feel like real places. It's not about so much what happens in those places. That's not the main thing. The main thing is just having the opportunity to visit them, to be there. That feels special. So, I guess the point I'm getting at is that gaming and philosophy probably are closer to each other than we think. Because when we play a role in a game, whatever that might be, even games outside of the RPG genre, like real-time strategy games or something like a city builder, we're still imagining a world that's different than our own. We're being able to create something and to contemplate things and to kind of work through all of those unresolved thoughts in our mind to find a place of peace and reconciliation and closure at the intersection of all things. I'm reminded of the goddess of witchcraft, Hecate. She was usually represented by a trinity of 3 women bearing torches, a key, a knife, a snake. And why? Well, it was to remind us that there's a crossroads between all things. And to navigate it, we need to cut ties with things which would hold us back, hence the knife. And we need to seek out knowledge, hence the key. And also, we need to be reborn, to leave behind the old and embrace the new. Hence the snake, because snakes are known for shedding their skins and renewing themselves in that way. So we experience in life a lot of crossroads, limerent spaces when we're not sure what to make of where we're at, when we're not sure maybe where the path will take us in the future. And we don't know what to make of all of these things necessarily. But when you log into your favorite game world for a period of time, you can just be. And I think we spend our lives chasing so many treadmills, climbing that hill only to realize that it's just the base of another bigger hill. If you look at Eastern philosophy, you'll find there's a lot more of that notion that we should be at peace with our death, we should be at peace with our life, and we should have a willingness to reconcile with all things. At the core of what makes gaming special, it's the opportunity to accept life as it is. And I think that that's at the core of all of the best gaming experiences you'll have. And it's also true that when you take away that tranquil experience of enjoying the journey, you wind up encountering in gaming circles a lot of the same problems you encounter in life. People start to get toxic. They stop being pleasant. They stop enjoying the experience, and they start trying too hard and grinding too hard and feeling like they need to reach a destination which may or may not be attainable or even exist. So when I talk about the therapeutic, philosophical benefits of gaming, I don't know that I'm necessarily talking about the hyper-competitive scene or games that accentuate negative aspects of human character. Mostly, I guess I'm talking about those games that give us the opportunity to express ourselves, to create, and to imagine ourselves as being heroes on some sort of an adventure, to see extraordinary things in ordinary experiences. Maybe if we could find peace in life, we'd have a better life by letting go of things. And I think that playing games can be a good way to let go of some of those more materialistic things that consume a lot of people. Because I think if you look at people who think gaming is really stupid, who don't think that there's any place in life for it, who are very serious about every aspect of life, those people often have other character problems going on. They're often people who you probably wouldn't really want to just hang out with and have a good conversation with. Because what do you really have if you don't have imagination? If there isn't anything that makes you just feel excited for the sake of the sheer joy of it, then isn't that a pretty rough, miserable life to be like that? Just trying to be in control of everything, trying to see if you can have more money in your bank account, have a bigger house, or manipulate people into doing what you want them to do. You know, I was talking to a friend of mine. He was saying, you know, tell me honestly, what do you think about my ability to, you know, to be a good leader in the workplace and to promote and stuff like that. And, you know, I was just honest with him. Said, you know, I don't know. I don't know that you necessarily have the best leadership aptitude. But by the same measure, the people who I would say do have the best aptitude for leadership at a higher level, there are also people who I probably wouldn't trust. They're people I wouldn't want to have for friends. They're people who I don't think have very good character. Those are the people who I would think have the best aptitude for success in many ways. So it's kind of like the Lord of the Rings. The heroes in the story were the hobbits. They were just the little defenseless guys off on an adventure that was bigger than they were. And loyalty, a willingness to do what is necessary not to seek adventure, but to step up to it when it needs to happen. A tendency to be able to resist corruption. Those are the kinds of things that feel very meaningful. And I think I'd rather spend my life with a gamer than with an overachiever. Because I would rather cherish the adventure than to spend my whole life both being and being in the presence of that idea that is never good enough. That you have to just keep on trying to climb the next hill to try to get higher. And that life is never something that you should just enjoy for its own sake. You know, when you're playing an RPG, the mobs, they always respawn. The quests, they don't really make a difference, because even if you do them, the story is still going to turn out the same in the end. You know, it's like somebody was talking about how in a recent update, the devs said that the choices that you make will determine the future of the old Merry Dominion, something like that. And they said, you know, that's ironic that they said that, because the truth is Skyrim is set 1,000 years in the future after ESO, so we all know how the story turns out. And I think that's interesting, because the truth is, you know, if you know how the story turns out, what's the point of experiencing it? What's the point of, I guess, what's the point of living if you know you're going to die, right? And what's the point of acquiring things if you know you're going to lose them and you can't take them with you when you go? What's the point of doing things if you know that in a sense it's all sort of pointless and fruitless? And the reason is because even if we aren't eternal creatures, even if we all have a time limit, we're all still connected to the eternal. We still have that capacity for imagination, that desire to conceive of things greater than ourselves. And that's why, whether it's movies or books or computer games, there is this genre of fantasy, of high literature, which makes people contemplate questions which are lofty and noble and often covered in many shades of gray. But the point is, fantasy makes us think about what it means to be alive, and helps us to contemplate how to make peace with the things in life that we perhaps don't understand so very well. So that's why when somebody says, well, gaming is stupid, I feel like I resent that, because to me it's a very meditative experience. It's something that helps me to remember, to be at peace with the world in whatever form it takes. For everyone, the tools we use might be different. It doesn't have to be gaming. It could be going for long walks or knitting. I don't know. But I do think that for a lot of us who grew up the first generation to really be immersed in gaming and online experiences, I think there's something spiritually important about being connected to games and some of those amazing game worlds that have been alive for a long time. I was really impressed with the game world of Tamriel, of course, Middle Earth. I was actually pretty amazed by Genshin Impact when it launched, and I thought, wow, this is an incredible world. It's so beautiful. And it's amazing how big it's gotten as that franchise has continued to grow. But I also think it's interesting how there's been so many other game worlds and things that have come along, like New World comes to mind, and there's a lot of others where I've thought, wow, that's a pretty beautiful game world. But it hasn't really spoken to me. It hasn't really jumped out. It hasn't really transported me to a different place and made me feel like, you know, this is something that I want to have as part of my life. So what is it? What is it that makes a game feel so real, and then maybe another one just kind of falls flat? It's often not really the graphics. It's not necessarily the activities of the world. It's something about the type of storytelling that exists, something about whatever that is. It makes something feel real to you. And I think those are things that are important. And there's a lot of games I find where they are cool, but they're not really speaking to me. And those, I don't really mind parting ways with those, because if I don't feel like it's inspiring me in some way, then why would I need to do it? It just doesn't really feel all that necessary. But then there's the other ones where I play the game and then I wind up on eBay or Amazon buying collectibles from the game or something. You know, I started playing Age of Mythology Retold, and I like that game. And I thought, why do I like that game? And, you know, it's because if you look around my apartment, you'll see I've got a lot of figurines of classic deities from antiquity. So, of course, I like a game which brings those deities from classical literature to life. It's not really about the combat. It's about finding a way to take something in my imagination and turn it into something real. That's where the magic is. And on that thought, you know, just think about how there's so many things in life where we get value out of allegory. We get value out of symbolism. If I said, do the right thing, maybe it's hard to picture what does righteousness look like. But if I say the goddess of justice is this woman who is wearing a blindfold and holding a sword, and you know, like, you can picture the goddess of justice standing outside of a courthouse, and even if you don't have any words to accompany it, you still have this idea of who she is, and you can picture it. It's like Santa Claus, you know, like, you don't necessarily have to go too in depth to teach about moral issues, but you can say that Santa Claus rewards good behavior, and, you know, he is kind and gives toys to kids who are good. And this suddenly is not a very hard thing to understand then. A child can understand it because it's an allegory that a child can relate to. And it's the same thing with games and literature of all kinds. I think there's a lot in life where if we don't have some picture to associate with an idea, we can't really get our head wrapped around it. But when you start to add in things that are understandable, things that are visual to us, and then you use them as a way to interpret experiences which are more abstract, then that can be a good way to, maybe in a sense to connect with the eternal. Carl Sagan used to, in his TV show Cosmos, he wrote about how, he talked about how if you had a three-dimensional being in a two-dimensional world, the two-dimensional creatures would just see a subsection, a slice of that three-dimensional creature as it passed through, and it would seem as if it was transforming itself by magic as it passed through the two-dimensional space. And so he said it's kind of the same thing with the fourth dimension. Maybe we are three-dimensional creatures in a four-dimensional universe. So we understand up, down, left, right, but we don't understand a direction that's outside of those parameters of latitude and longitude. We don't conceptualize that. The idea of, how do you have something that exists outside, beyond, yet still within space as we know it? How do you come to terms with the concept of something existing and also not existing? And these are scientific questions, and they're also spiritual ones. Like, how do you conceptualize and come to terms with the fact that all of us will eventually die, and then also come to a place of peace with the fact that we don't want to die, that every adventure comes to an end, and yet we also want our adventures to go on forever. How do we come to terms with the duality of so many things in life, that things are both true and untrue all at the same time? And I think that gaming is a good way to explore a lot of those things. It makes us think about something beyond the perspective that we would get otherwise. And that's healthy. I think that that's even perhaps important. In a world that is often very materialistic and very boring, in many ways devoid of a sense of higher purpose, maybe immersing yourself in a fictional world can be a way to reach out and touch the hand of God. To find faith in a faithless world. To find the tangible substance of things which are unseen. Maybe it doesn't do anything for us exactly, but if it helps us to understand better who we are and to be more at peace along the way, then it does just as much as any meditative experience could. It helps us to be more at peace with life. And I think that that is itself its own reward. So wherever you find yourself, don't settle for mere existence. Find some world worthy of immersing yourself in, and then enjoy the journey, not the destination. And in a world filled with things that are demanding your action and your attention, in a world where everything is implying that you need to be more or achieve more, take some time just to be yourself, and you might find it is a good investment after all. As always, thanks for watching.